Hello, how are you?
I am very good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm excited because we're not alone again.
Yeah, we're doing great with these guest podcasts, aren't we? It's so
Oh,
exciting when we're not alone. So
yes.
today we have one of our incredible TAGC members joining us on the show. We have the beautiful Helen. So welcome, Helen.
Morning.
Ah,
Morning.
so amazing to have you here, Helen.
Oh, thanks for having me, ladies.
Oh, no, it's amazing. It's so lovely. And like having these conversations is just everything. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so Helen is on the show with us today to share with us her self-development journey. And all that entails really. So we've got a question to kick off with, haven't we, Charlotte? We're going straight in.
We are. So, what we'd love to know, Helen, is what was life like before TAGC, and just kind of maybe paint this picture for us, before maybe taking, because you kind of have dabbled quite a bit in self development, really, haven't you? But that kind of before TAGC and maybe taking it up to that level.
Okay, so it was actually uh International Women's Day when I joined. And at that point I had two lovely boys. So I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time. Um, and I suppose I've always been really ambitious. And when the boys came along, life is just turned upside down
Yeah.
and totally for the better. Um, but I think that I felt at the time I was just kind of running on the hamster wheel of life. Um, it was really busy. I think I was torn between being work Helen and mum Helen. And I suppose me, Helen, was just not in the picture. Um, and yeah, I think that I'd kind of seen what you girls were doing. And just even in terms of, the name of Authentic Girls Club, it just got me really thinking about kind of who am I? And I think on the journey to becoming a mum, um, you just give yourself all to them. And I think when I went back to work, I found it really difficult because I still wanted to be really ambitious, really career driven. I managed to work part time, so I was working 3 days a week as head of business and economics in an independent school. So I was teaching 3 days, but it notoriously used to just spill over the days when I'd have my youngest on a Thursday, Friday. And I'd be juggling with trying to get him to sleep, with trying to get work done. I'd always try to make sure that our weekends were very much just us as a family. So Monday to Friday, it was very much trying to cram everything in work-wise to still have my career, but ultimately those Thursday, Friday, making sure that I was giving all my time and attention to my youngest. Um, and yeah, I just felt that I was kind of on this hamster wheel of life, and it was very fast paced. I didn't have any time. I was always looking into the future, kind of like, well, when I get to this point, that's when I'll be able to kind of reclaim time back for me, and thinking that's okay for now. This is what life's all about. Um, and I think, yeah, I just kind of felt like I was doing a lot of stuff, probably as good as I could at the time. But I just felt immensely time poor and quite depleted. And I think I've always been somebody that's kind of a glass half full. I've always been an optimist, but I just felt that there was something missing, and I'd kind of lost who I was partly, and I wasn't really motivated in work the same. Um, Probably because I was doing everything, but it was kind of just ticking ticking along whilst I could kind of manage the boys. And I think, yeah, I was always kind of looking to the future to provide that happiness rather than every single day.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's where I was up to before TAGC.
I mean, that's so relatable, Helen. Like, there's so many things that you said there that I'm just like, yeah, I was there. And it is a juggle, isn't it? And I think especially after having children, when you just find yourself in this place where you're like, where have I gone? Where am I? Because we're being all these different things for different people. Like you say, work Helen, mum Helen. Where's Helen? Like, where's Helen for me? And yeah, I really relate to that 100%.
And something else you said as well, Helen, that I really relate to was the delay of the happiness. You know, like, oh, when this is like this, that's when I can make more time for me, or that's not necessarily that's when I'll be happy, but, you know, kind of putting yourself on hold until then. And it's like, well, when is then? Like, when is then? Because we all know, don't we, as mums having careers and working, it's like we've really got to carve out that time now, haven't we? Because if we keep delaying it, like, it just doesn't. We've got to make it. So what I'd love to kind of ask on that is, do you still feel like that now, or have you kind of made shifts so that it's not I'll make time when, or does that make sense? Like, you know, it's not in the future, it's now. How have you made that shift?
I personally think genuinely my shift has been quite profound. Like time, in my head, I had no time. And now I am busier, as in I'm doing more stuff for me, but time is always found. And like you mentioned, Charlotte, I've always kind of been in touch with self-development. It's always been something that I've been well aware of. And I think in terms of mindset as well, that's always something that I've really enjoyed and I've been passionate about. But rather than thinking about the future of when I'll be able to do this, I'm really aware that time is our most precious currency. And if we don't start enjoying the little moments every single day, then we're not going to be happy and we're not going to have that strong mindset. And, you know, my husband, the kids, I genuinely find those small bits of happiness, whether it be, you know, that tickle and those infectious laughs that you hear from the children, or the simple things of sitting down to have dinner together, not then thinking, okay, after this, then I've got to run the bath, or those silly menial things. I will literally really think and focus on what is really happy about today and not thinking about the future. So yeah, I think that I've definitely got more time, because I've swapped what I've done previously to making that time purposeful and using it with good intentions. So yeah, I just feel that I was in a lack mindset, rather than an abundance mindset. And I think when you're at that point, you think, well, I'm not going to have any time. It's very easy to talk to yourself that way. And this it might be one of your questions later on, but I think that in terms of the way I talk to myself now, it is very different. And I've been a part of the club for over a year now, and I'm coaching myself day to day. And I think that's been the biggest shift, is not only having the time, but actually really developing my mindsets that's strong, and I'm not falling into that place of lack like I might have been previous to TAGC.
That's
Wow.
amazing. That's amazing.
That's remarkable, isn't it? To
Yeah.
say that the shift is profound, and you can just hear it is. To from the picture you've painted, Helen, to just busy, so much stuff, not enough time, never enough time. How could I possibly make time for me or anything out? You know, joining a membership, like, how can I make more time for that when I don't feel like I've got any time as it is? That is a profound shift. And the way you've portrayed that is that you're intentional, it's on purpose, and you're making time for the things that are important to you. And it's not future living, it's living in the present moment. Is that a kind of a fair sort of reflection of what on the shift that you've made?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And it's that being, I love what you said there, because I do the same, being so present in those little moments that we have each day, because they're the moments that we're after, aren't they? But yet we miss them because, like you say, we're thinking about running the bath like 5 minutes later. And I think one of the shifts I had very recently was this, when I was sat outside with Dale and Denzel was on the grass and we are having a coffee in the morning. Like, these are the things I want to do, even when I get to where I want to go. Like, goals are great, and I believe in goals and dreams, absolutely. But these moments right here are what I'm after. So let's live them. And yeah, just really being in that.
As well, based upon what you've said, I think because I have been quite ambitious, and I probably got to a management role quite young, and I think that that's how I determined my success. So to me, success was about growing in my career, and then when I obviously had the boys, that kind of automatically took a back seat. But success isn't happiness, and I think that's really important, that it is part of our happiness, but actually it's finding those every single day to day, and not trying to put ourselves on a pedestal and think that when we get to that point, that's when we're going to find our happiness. And I think that success is often tied with wealth in terms of money. And I genuinely believe that that mindset has also shifted massively, and not just for me. I think it's rubbed off as well on my husband, in terms of wealth is time, and the more time that we can have and finding those moments of happiness, that's what happiness is. It's not the success. It's not when I get to this position or when I've got X amount of money or anything like that, which I think in society, and especially being a business teacher, like, it's that kind of consumerism, the materialism in life, like, we are fed that from a very young age, and especially with social media now, like, that's just constantly drilled within us. And I think that when we change our perspectives, which does take time, it doesn't have to be radical, it doesn't have to be overnight. But I think that once we really actually think about what it is that we value, like what are our values, and actually align that with our day-to-day life, that's been a massive shift as well, in terms of thinking, okay, what do I value? What are my values? And making sure that my decisions are in line with those values, which in the past, I was such a people pleaser that I would just be so depleted, kind of trying to please everybody, rather than actually thinking, well, no, what is it that, do I agree with this, or is this going to kind of not help me, but yeah, I suppose, is it just in line with what I believe and what I want to be doing, and knowing that that time, like, I do have a choice. I don't have to say yes to everything. Yeah, that's another big learning.
There's so much here.
Yeah.
There's so much. There's boundaries being put in place. There's understanding your values. There's like living in alignment with those values, like asking ourselves each day, like, is this how I want to spend my time? Because we all have the 24 hours in a day, don't we? And I think this shift you've made, Helen, is really, really is remarkable, because I think a lot of our listeners will relate to this time, this feeling like a lack of time. It's usually time that stops us, isn't it? Like, and it's that it's Marie Forleo that has that wonderful quote, where if it's important to me, I'll make the time. If it's not, I'll make excuses. And that is a little bit of a hard one to swallow, but it's kind of true, isn't it? Like, if it's important to us, we'll make the time. So I just wanted to kind of ask a few more questions on time, if I may, because there's obviously been a mindset shift there in terms of how you think about time, and like a shift in perspective. It's going to be a big question. How? How? Because I'm listening, like, how's she done that? And I know it's a journey, isn't it? Like, there's no magic wand, and it's not like an instant kind of thing, isn't it? But could you kind of, have there been tools you've used, or what's the journey look like for you to kind of shift that perspective in terms of time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And yeah, even reflecting on it now. So first of all, yeah, I was never a morning person. And I'm still learning to be a better morning person. And that's the thing, we're never fully, we're always on a journey, and that's fine as well, and knowing that.
Yeah.
But Just our accountability calls on a Monday at 6 o'clock. Like if you'd have said to me that you're going to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Zoom call, writing your goals for the week, I'd have said, well, that's never going to happen. Partly because, you know, I'd sometimes have a really bad night with the boys. But now that's so kind of ingrained in me. It's a non-negotiable. And even if I have had a bad night or a busy weekend, like those Monday mornings are really important to me. And it just leaves me feeling in such a good mindset for the rest of the week. So I've made more time within the mornings. And sometimes that can be without the children if they've not woken up. But as you know, they sometimes join in.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, it's knowing that that's okay because we're all very much in a similar situation. So I've made time more in the mornings. The calls that we have midweek are always at 8 o'clock. And in the past, I'd have said, well, sometimes I'll have still been putting the children to bed. And that's something that I'd have said, well, I can't do anything about that type of thing. But I absolutely could, because I don't have to be doing that every single night. And, you know, me and my husband are very much a team when it comes to bedtime, and I will do all the bedtime routine. And then literally at 5 to 8, like we know on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, that'll be my time to kind of go and to be on the calls. So again, my mindset shifted that I know that actually that's really important, not just for me, but for the rest of the family, because how much I'm growing and developing, that's an added bonus to everybody. And I know it's kind of, you know, a cliche that if you don't look after yourself, then you can't look after anybody, but it's so true. So I've prioritized that. And I think that once you have the shift, and as I say, it's not been overnight, but once you have that shift, you start to actually realize that it's okay to prioritize you. And that's still something that I battle with in my head at times, because you feel like, well, should I? It's those shoulds that creep in. Should I be doing this? But yeah, I think that overall it then is an advantage to everybody. So I think actually looking out and zooming into where I was to where I am now, it's given yourself permission, and there is time and there's things that you can do differently. And that doesn't have to be instantaneously, but once you start building on your mindset and you have that strength and you are actually taking note of what needs to change, what isn't serving you, I think that's when the time actually becomes quite easy, because you can see, okay, I shouldn't be doing this, and this is actually what I need to be doing.
That's everything. And you know, just as you were talking then, I'm like, I took myself back to when I was also in that, you know, no time. And it's almost like that shift of prioritizing ourselves and knowing that we matter too, isn't it? And I think I was definitely in that. I craved more time. Like I just wanted an hour to myself. I wanted a day to myself, a week to myself. But even when I got it, I didn't know what to do with it. And it's this knowing that we deserve our own time, and like we deserve to get clear and decide what we want, decide who we are, you know, get those values, like understand them and live our life by them. I just wonder whether it's bumping us up the pile, isn't it? And just going, like you say, when I do this, everybody benefits, because yeah, it is looking after me first, so that then I can look after everybody else like tenfold as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I always remember you saying that when you did get some time, the first thing you would do is the housework. Like you try to do something to, and I was so in that place. Whereas actually it's really important that when you do get time, doing the things that really benefit you.
Yeah.
Even that is really hard to think about. You actually have to take the time to think, okay, what is it that is good for me, that I do enjoy doing? So yeah, I think it's one of those that if you'd have asked me kind of what are your hobbies, what you enjoy, I'd have been like, well, when do I have time for that? It's not possible right now.
Yeah.
but yeah, I think again it's that shift, isn't it? That it takes time to actually give yourself that permission to think, okay, well, what is it I enjoy? What do I want to be doing? And how can I create that time?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. And it's this journey towards, I love that, like we're journeying home to our authentic selves, aren't we? And we move so far away from her really because we're busy putting everybody else first and we don't think about her like at all. We don't think about who we truly are, what we need, what we want, what our dreams are, and actually then go about doing them. So it's really this journeying home and giving ourselves what we need, working on that relationship with ourselves. And then, yeah, like you say, time can be in abundance. It absolutely can be when we know what to do with it. So I love that.
yeah, you touched on something there, Charlotte, which should lead me into our kind of our next question, really, Helen, is this relationship we have with ourselves. Like, it's the how we communicate. Like, the best conversation is the one that we're going to have in our heads, you know, like that's the one we need to work on the most. And how we communicate with ourselves is so, so important. And you mentioned earlier about your self-talk and how that's changed and how you now, I love this, coach yourself, like you coach yourself better. And that's our goal, isn't it, at TAGC,
Yeah.
Charlotte? You know, we're empowering you to empower yourself ultimately, because it's incredible to be surrounded and supported and have our cheerleaders. But we really need to be that person for ourselves, don't we? To give ourselves everything that we seek externally to ourselves. So tell us a little bit about your self-talk. How has it changed? How has it evolved? How has it grown? Yeah.
Well, again, this is something that I'm quite interested in as well. So yeah, it's kind of something that I do read up about, and I've always been made aware of our limiting beliefs and how they stem from a very early age. And I'd say that this has probably been a transformation, kind of the latter end of my TAGC journey. And it was only when it's just simple, it's just little things like that voice in our brain that is talking to us constantly. It's it's always there. We spend the most time with it, and it's really getting to know it, because that voice isn't us. Like, that's not necessarily who we are. And I know we've spoken about this before, but in terms of like our conscious brain and our subconscious brain and the thoughts that we have, I actually did an assembly on this because I'm just so passionate about it. And that, 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of those are repetitive. And unless we can really tap into what those thoughts are, we're never going to be able to change this mindset. Um, and our minds are just so powerful. And when we talk about our thoughts becoming our feelings, becoming our actions, becoming our results, it's so important that we get to know that internal voice and that internal dialogue. Um, so yeah, in terms of the thought process, I'm really aware of, like, if you think about everybody's got mental health, and every day it goes along a continuum. Some days it's great, some days it might not be. And the work that we've done, getting back to better. So when we feel that we're having that lull, or if we feel that we're not great within ourselves, I kind of just listen to that. I listen to what I'm telling myself. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember when I had that breakthrough moment when we were talking on one of our calls, how I did the pause and kind of recognize what am I telling myself, reflecting on that, and then just the results basically that come from the pause and the reflecting, and then ultimately reframing the thought. So nowadays, everybody knows when they're feeling a bit not great. And I think that now when I'm not feeling great, I'm thinking, okay, why am I thinking this? Kind of, where's that stemming from? Where does it come from? Trying to reframe that in my head. And then the things that we've done around the getting back to better quicker. So whether it be, listen to some music that can completely change the way you feel, or reading, or actually being aware that, okay, this is the state I'm in currently, and that's okay, because it's not going to be forever, it's going to be temporary, and we're never going to feel like, woohoo, this is amazing. Like, for the rest of our lives. And I think that it's actually taking note of listening to that inner critic at times and thinking, where's that come from? And then trying to reframe it to how I'm talking to myself. But especially what we do every week on a Monday morning, when we think about what do we want to feel differently about that week and having a think better thought, I actually put it on my fridge. I've got a whiteboard. And I will literally tell myself that thought, and it just kind of sometimes just switches me out of that like kind of frame of mind or mood. So yeah, I just feel that in the past, before TAGC, as much as I did reading and I was really into mindset, it's that thing that you have to do, it's with consistency. So now I'm well aware that if I'm in that moment, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? Is that true? Where does it come from? And then trying to reframe it. I mean, I sound like I'm living my life perfectly, but it's not. It's that journey of accepting that we're going to have those days, and how can we kind of turn it around rather than just feeling rubbish for an entire day, knowing that that moment will pass.
I love that. And this is what we always say. It's not wearing rose tinted glasses. Like life is like this, you know, it's for anyone on the podcast who's not watching. I'm just like literally it's waves,
Waves.
Waves. It's a roller coaster. There's waves. Like even last week, I had a day on Wednesday where I was up here and a day on Thursday where I dipped right down. Like that is life, but like you've just said, like it's what we do with it, and that's the exciting part, and that's us grabbing our power back and going, almost my low days are actually a great day to understand myself more, to set those thoughts, plant those seeds with those thoughts even more strongly and grow through it. And that's the difference, isn't it? It's using those lull days to then experience more of those wonderful days, build that self-pride, build those new thought patterns that are much more helpful, much more serving. And it's this, I would say, like in the club, don't I? I'm like, oh, it can be lighthearted. Like I think sometimes with all of this work, it can feel like, oh my goodness, doing the inner work, that's heavy, that's scary, that's like a lot. Like I've definitely not got time for that. But it's growing as we go. It's going on this journey. And the fact we get to do it together and do all of this, like do the doing together is just amazing, isn't it? So I love that. I think that's incredible.
I just want to say, Helen, you're not, because you said, oh, he's saying about how it's you living this perfect life. You're not portraying that. What you're portraying is that you appreciate that, like Charlotte just said, there's no rose tinted glasses, there's ups, there's downs in life, and that's just a given. But what you do have is the tools and the strategies for it's how we navigate the hard times, isn't it? So there's the waves and we're on the surfboard and we get knocked off. It's what we do to get back on that board and ride that wave. And there's a clear strategy there in terms of we can notice our feelings quite quicker than we can notice our thought processes if we haven't, if we're quite new to this work. So it's tapping into that. It's going inside, isn't it? And it is that listening. Like, I'm not feeling great today. What's going on? And like, ask ourselves, that's interesting, or just getting inquisitive with what's going on in our minds. And I love the 3 R's that you put together there. I loved it when you shared it in the group. I was like, yes, Helen's 3 R's, and then there's a choice in that moment, isn't there? Once we've maybe discovered what those thought processes are, or what story we're telling ourselves, what belief that we have in that moment and how it's making us feel, there's a choice to kind of, well, is there a slightly different thought that I could think? And it's not about going from, let's say use like confidence as an example. Let's say our self, our self-esteem and self-worth and confidence is a rock bottom low. It's not going, okay, but right, I'm going to choose to believe now is I'm as confident as Beyonce. Like, it's just like, that's not, I'm not going to suddenly do that. So it's just kind of bridging the gap by taking that next step. So what's the next best step, next best thought, that I can get on board with in that moment? Like, and it could be, I'm working towards building my confidence, just kind of maneuvering out of that sort of negative thought into the next best one. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that you've got strategies and you've got tools and you're using them. And I think that's the difference, because you mentioned that you've kind of read material and stuff in the past in terms of mindset and personal development. And the next step is the action taking. And you said you're practicing it consistently, and the doing of it is what makes the difference, isn't it? to get us to where we want to get to, we've got to take the action. The knowledge is great, but without the movement, we'll stay where we are. So I just wanted to reflect back on that. Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is everything, isn't it? And this is probably quite a big question, but I suppose in a nutshell, what we'd love to know is how TAGC has helped you. And if anyone was maybe kind of on the, cusp of thinking, oh, they might be sat there thinking, I've not got time, like I can't commit to it, like kind of what you would say, because I know that both Kat and I have been in that place, but we're all in it in slightly different ways, aren't we? So yeah, any thoughts or shares on that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'd say that, I suppose this is going quite deep, but you've only got one life, and even if you're considering it, there must be something within you that wants something to change. And it's only you that has got control over that. So no one's going to come along and, magic the wand and say like, this is what's going to happen next. You've got to do the work, just like Kat said. And I genuinely believe that with the community that we've got, it is such a welcoming community, and everybody is on their own path, totally different paths, but everybody is there to support one another. And what's beautiful as well is that both of you are on the path with us the whole time. So to have you both as our mentors, to see that you're actually doing the do. We're all human at the end of the day. And I just think that when you've got that collaboration and support from people that aren't your family, that aren't your friends, sometimes it's quite difficult to offload maybe how we're feeling, or you might not want to kind of in your mind see it as burdening others. The community that we've got at TAGC is so supportive, and everybody is everybody else's cheerleaders. And I just think that it's so special, and it comes from a really good place of wanting to support and help one another to grow, no matter what that might be. And I really think that is so unique to TAGC. I don't think that's something that you can get anywhere else.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, thank you.
It's
us taking a compliment there.
Yeah. And honestly, like your growth, Helen, and this is about being on this journey together. Your growth has been so inspirational, and we're in this space, and just that inspiration is such a knock-on effect, isn't it? And we always say that you guys make TAGC what it is. We've created the space for us to come together, and obviously we bring the tools, we bring all of the things, but without you guys sharing in the way you do, opening up in the way you do, like bring that willingness to do things differently, to see things differently, it wouldn't be what it is. And like you say, it's this collaboration. We're all on this journey in different ways, at different parts, or riding different waves. One of us might be up here, one of us might be there. But the fact that we get to do life together in this way is just, it's a dream come true, because it was a little seed that, I was like, is this enough? Is this enough back in the day?
Oh my golly, it's more than enough. Isn't it? It's just such a privilege. It really is. And honestly, Helen, like, just to second everything Charlotte's just said, you and all our members are absolutely what makes TAGC what it is. And it's just such a pleasure, isn't it, to watch us all grow on our own. Everyone stays in their lane, and it's not about comparison or competition. It's about support and encouragement. And just celebrating one another's successes, no matter what they look like. So a big thank you for being a part of it and bringing it all that you bring, because it's so wonderful to have you in. It really is. Oh,
thank you.
It is. And thank you for sharing your story today. It is inspirational, and I know it will help many of our listeners. If you're sat there, wondering whether to, like you say, if you've got that urge, it's that, isn't it? It's following it. Because actually, when we've got that urge and we're sat in frustration and not doing anything about it, we're creating our own frustration. And that's the most annoying frustration of all, because you've just got to do something.
That's it.
And we're here for that, aren't we? Absolutely. And on the other side of any leap, at TAGC is a very big warm welcome and a load of support. So thank you so, so much, Helen. It was incredible to hear your story, and yeah, amazing to have you on the podcast.
And I'm
thank
sure
you
you'll be
very much for
back.
having me. Yeah, thank you, ladies.
Oh, you're
Yes, because you've got
welcome.
lots of exciting things that you're working on, and I'm sure you will be back to tell us all sorts of things in the future. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Speak soon, guys.
Speak soon.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.